Welcome to another episode of Tomes and Tunes. This is episode 39. I am your host, Arielle Silver. Tomes and Tunes, I created this 39 episodes ago because I love music and I also love books, and I just thought, well, in the time of COVID and when we're all flung into our homes, what can we do that's fun? And it just naturally happened. I started talking with other songwriters, and inevitably the conversation would lead to books. So I am very happy to welcome today's guest is Camille Bloom. She lives in Luxembourg. I think she's from Seattle, somewhere around there. We're gonna find out. But she lives in Luxembourg now, and so dialing in all the way across the pond. Let's bring her in. Hello.
Hello.
Camille, I just said you were from Seattle, and as soon as I said it, I was like, wait a second. I don't know if that's where you're from originally, but you did live kind of outside of Seattle for a while, right?
Yes, and I lived in Seattle for from 2000 to 2020. So I guess 20 years, but I was also born right outside of Seattle. So,
okay.
But I lived all over Washington State. I'm just a Washington baby.
You're
really.
a Washington baby.
Yeah.
And then a couple years ago, has it been a year?
18 months.
Okay. You moved to Europe.
Yes.
Where you had been touring for a long time. You have friends in Europe. You have spent a lot of time there as a musician.
Yeah.
And then 18 months ago, you actually packed up your suitcase, and I think your suitcase might have gotten lost along the way.
Yes, it did. I think I sent it in April, and I got my belongings in late October. I mean,
wow.
they were shipped by sea, and I think the boat got lost. I'm not sure, but it was a long wait for your essentials.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, goodness, because that means that not only were your belongings lost at sea for that long, but there were people on that boat as well.
Very possibly. I don't know. And I don't know, they might have done, my shipment was so small because I don't have a ton of belongings, and I was also being cognizant about the electrical here is a different voltage, and I didn't bring a lot of things. I had a few kind of pieces of furniture that I really wanted, and otherwise just starting over. So what was great though was living for 6 months with barely anything and realizing how little you need.
Yeah.
Which I always took away when I was touring anyway. You're right. I'd been touring in Europe since 2009, and 1 or 2 times a year coming over for like 4 to 6 weeks, and I would live in a suitcase for 6 weeks, and that included all my gluten-free snacks, my albums, all my cables and microphones, and I mean, I didn't need much.
I forgot that you were also touring with your gluten-free snacks.
Oh yeah, always. That's the number one thing. It took up like almost half my bag. But
right, and then the merch and everything and your gear, and then okay. So
my guitar on my back.
I remember when you were first arriving in Europe and you hadn't yet received your belongings, and you were modeling new pairs of pants.
Oh, yes.
It was an opportunity to dig into the Luxembourg fashion, right?
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so embarrassing. But I didn't have any clothes. So I came over because I've been giving workshops in a school, and that school said, would you like to teach music here and move? And I thought, well, I can do that. And with as much vacation, I can keep touring, probably 16 weeks a year or so. And, but I had no clothes because they were on the boat. So I had to buy a whole new teaching wardrobe. And I have been just touring for 15 years. I've never had to think about an outfit. So I got to buy a fancy pants, and I was like, so I called them pantsies, and I did a series, and I still get inspired once in a while to take a pantsy.
Well, you have a great eye for pattern. I'll just say that. You're just like a pattern girl.
I do love pattern, but I'm usually busy on the top, plain on the bottom, or vice versa.
Right.
I'm never busy on the bottom and top. I think that's a little overkill.
A little too much. Well, nowadays we're all just elbow and up, right?
You're right. In fact, you're lucky I'm wearing real pants right now. But I am. I did it for you. And I even put shoes on because I thought I need to feel Yeah, like I'm, yeah, not in
Like
my
you're
house.
actually like, it's an event, right? Well,
Yeah, exactly.
for the longest time I only wore soft clothes.
Mm.
When COVID hit and I came inside, I was like, why did I wear hard clothes before, like jeans?
Yeah,
Why did I ever
yeah.
wear jeans? But actually, I'm wearing jeans right now. I started wearing jeans
Okay.
again a week or two ago.
How's it feel?
It feels all right. It
Okay.
got cold here, Los
Uh-huh.
Angeles, winter, not as cold as the rest of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
right now, which is going through a lot. But,
Mm-hmm.
but winter times snap. And so for a while I was wearing, soft clothes over soft clothes and just like
Mm-hmm.
many layers of cotton. I was just cotton wrapped. Suddenly I was like, oh, wait a second. Jeans might be really nice actually right now.
Yeah, you feel like you're dressing up when you put jeans
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I do. I do. I absolutely do.
Except I will confess, I got these as I can't remember if it was a holiday gift or a birthday gift, but I actually own slippers now. I never have owned slippers, and I'm wearing them.
Now, are they rubber bottomed?
They are rubber bottomed.
Okay, good. So you can sort of sneak outside, and to me that's the ideal. You want them comfy, but I want to be able to step out and snip some chives, you know? So
Or
it's
lavender.
like or
Yeah.
lavender or you want to have that flexibility, but you don't wear them to the store, do you? Because I feel
Oh,
like
no.
that's crossing a line.
Yeah, and the store is an event because I only
Okay.
go every 2 weeks,
Okay.
once every 2 weeks during COVID, and
Mm.
that's an event. So I've actually
Okay.
been putting on boots for that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Fancy. Okay, so you're in Luxembourg, and are
Yeah.
you, what is it? Okay, COVID. So
Yes.
you moved across to another continent to take a job teaching music and maybe also theater, or was it just music?
Nope, just music.
Just music. Okay. And now, so that was 18 months ago, and then scroll forward from that about 6 months later. So, and now, 18 months after you moved, what is life looking like?
Well, I feel like, I mean, this is a tiny country, so we have a good infrastructure, we have good health insurance, and I feel like people are taking good caution. They made it absolutely mandatory to wear masks in public way longer than it was mandatory in other states and countries. And I mean, when I traveled a bit this summer and would go to Belgium and they didn't have any masks on, and I was like, you are way behind the times. What's happening? The Netherlands were like, what is COVID? It's not really affecting us, I mean, so Luxembourg has been ahead of the curve as far as being really conscientious. I've had, I want to say, 8 COVID tests, and I have a 9th tomorrow. It's very easy to get tested. They constantly send you free tests in the mail. But it still feels apocalyptic. And I do think, I think sometimes this is what people during wartime might have felt. Obviously not, we don't have the same fear as war might create, but just having this sort of, I don't know, it's a sadness that I think has seeped in as sort of a surrender and a not seeing the other side yet. I mean, yes, we have the vaccine, but how many people are on the list for that? And I'm really glad we have it. But yeah, so I think we're a long way. And I never imagined I had 2 trips and 2 tours planned that I had to cancel back in the States. And that's fine, in the big picture, but I haven't been home yet. So it feels really strange. It will be 2 years before I step foot back in Seattle at the earliest.
Wow.
So that's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
That's a long
I never
time.
expected that. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So are you teaching in a school, or is it Zoom like?
So both. I'm teaching. So I started out in the school, but they were on a rotational basis. So I was in school most days, but every 3rd week a year group would be out. So I'm teaching secondary music. I'm the only music teacher in the school. It's a small private school focused on composition and production, music production, and yeah, I mean, now we're gonna supposedly starting next week we will all be back, but we've had many cases in school that we've managed very well. Immediately quarantine like a whole year group, keep it so the numbers are down. But I'm so grateful because all my teacher friends in America, they are teaching remotely every day, and staring at a screen for that many hours and not having the kid contact, it's not the same.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm sure there are better ways to do it. I think that the teaching model didn't change, but but everything about the teaching model changed. But the school systems, the schools, the teachers, everything was expected to carry on as usual, same number of hours, same format, and the teachers were, I think, just kind of told, okay, carry on, and the students as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's hard for students. They need the interaction. And, we're certainly not frontline workers, but we're close. I mean, we are trying, at least those of us that are having to go in, but also the people that are trying to teach online every day creatively, they are also heroes. I mean, trying to make it engaging and fun. And we're constantly, every week we have to change up our plans because something shifts. So now we're not in school, but next week we are. And it's a lot.
So for you, what does teaching music look like when you're online?
Yeah.
Versus in the classroom?
Well, I'm doing lots of, I try to do really creative stuff. And by the way, I still am teaching a bunch of private students in the evenings, but online, right? Those are all voice and guitar and working with songwriters. But I'm trying to do things like I had one last week where it was a music lottery. And they opened a PowerPoint and they touched one musical note and it took them they had to gargle their favorite song and I had to try to guess what it was. And if I could, they'd get, or they'd have to fill water glasses and try to play like a pop, riff that they know based on getting the pitches right.
Like a glass harmonica.
Yeah. I mean, so I try to do fun interactive things where they'll send me a video of evidence that they've been working on it and, stuff. Or my year 9s are doing, do you know the Cup song that Anna Kendrick made famous in Pitch Perfect? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I just taught myself. And
you can play it here. I'm just looking around for a cup.
Yeah. So they're learning that, and I've invited them to sing it, and I want to put a video together of the year group. So
that's fun.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. And then for you as I just want to say hi, Ann Stott. She's a songwriter out in P-Town, Cape Cod. And I want to say hi also to Guy. Hi, Guy, and Elle. And Darby tuned in. Hi, Darby. And I want to say, if anybody's watching, just say hi in the chat so that we can see you. So that's your teaching. And then as far as your performance, you said that you had a couple of tours canceled and all that stuff. Have you been live streaming? What does that feel like? What's going on?
You know what's funny? When I took the leap out of America and also out of a marriage, I went into I gave myself about 6 months just to reconnect to who I was and relearn, what I wanted to be doing in my life and reinvent. Well, then right after that 6 months, COVID hit. And I had just been I'd played a show in the Netherlands. I had 8 shows booked for the last summer in Seattle and Utah and Oregon. But then, you know what I thought? I had released an album the year of my divorce. And so it was last year, right? And then after a while, I think you and I were talking about this before the podcast, when you release something like that where you just spill all your guts out, I had to replenish. And so it was actually this beautiful serendipitous thing that I ended up, because almost all of my musician friends are struggling to make ends meet, or canceling tours, or not putting their records out. Or if they are, they're like, here's a digital version because I can't tour it. So I feel very lucky and blessed. And actually, I haven't live streamed because I'm okay. And I want those live streams to go to artists who really need that money and security. And I keep in touch on my mailing list, and I'm continuing to use my voice in all kinds of ways. But no, I haven't been live streaming because I don't feel like I need the money right now. And way too many people do need it. So I've just sort of stepped back and tried to tune in to other people's things, Yeah.
And it sounds like you have a lot of creative outlets right now as well. with teaching, and I know that you've been writing new music. And
Oh, that was like the most exciting thing, I think. But you know what? I truly believe this, that when you don't put your energy somewhere, it doesn't flow. Like
yeah,
if you're not hungry for it, if you're not starving for, if you don't need to do it, you won't. And I knew that part of me, I was like, okay, I'm feeling ready, and I cultivated like this file on my computer of all these different video ideas and audio ideas, and yeah. So writing new music to me, I was so grateful because, like I said before, I feel like after every album, I wonder, do I have anything left? Will I ever have anything left to say? Will I write anything that I'm proud of? So that's exciting. But also, the minute I said to the universe, like, I want to do more focusing on my singer-songwriter self, and collaborations. I'm doing all these backup singing for different artists, and I've been using my voice reading for a meditation app, which is so fun. So it's happening, you know? And I think I'll record an EP at some point, but for now, I'm just happy to be writing.
You know, I have a question about that meditation work that you're doing. Because we were talking about the sleep series, the sleep meditation. When you go to sleep after recording some of that work for the meditation app, do you find yourself re-entering those guided meditations that you have recorded? Do you revisit those places on your own?
I do, but it's not usually when I'm getting ready to sleep. I think if I were recording them around the time that I would get ready to go to sleep, I would.
Right.
But I'm always at the studio in the morning.
Yeah.
But I will say that I am so, by the end, you know, I'll go in and I'll have my warm tea or whatever, and I'm recording. And by the end, I've just read like 14 meditations. I just feel so connected. It's really ridiculous. I feel like I even speak slower. Like I'd go to the store afterward and be like, thank you for ringing me up. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's very relaxed. It works, you know, even on me.
That stuff works. Hey, kids out there, this stuff works.
This stuff works.
Okay, Camille. So during this time, recently anyway, what have you been reading? Do you like to read? I've had a number of guests on this show tell me that they don't read, which is really interesting.
No. Okay, not only do I have an English degree, and I taught English for 5 years because I
that.
have been an obsessive reader since I was little. Like the library was my second living room.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I do not have a book with me on every outing, I have a sense of anxiety. It's like so then I was like, oh, I have to download a couple on my phone, and I'm a book, like I like a paper book. But I also got a Kindle because if I travel long distance, I want to take 12 books, and that's not realistic for a suitcase. So no, I'm a huge reader. Oh man, right now, I have this connection with elderly people. I'm not sure why. I was delving into it earlier today, like, why do I love particularly about like these elderly men that are close to 90. There have been a couple great books recently with a narrative. And I feel like I learned so much, even though the author, I'm sure, is not an 85-year-old man. It's a woman named Celia Reynolds, but there's something captivating, and there's always some insight about growing older. And I remember I read The Secret Diary of Hendrik Groen, age 83 and a quarter. I read that not long ago. And it was hilarious, and I also cried, and I felt... and he was telling his story of living in an elderly home in the Netherlands, and I was just getting insights into like what it must feel like to feel like a forgotten generation. Like you're just put in a home, and I don't know. And it helps me to think I'm young. I've got a lot of years left, you know, and I need to follow every dream I have because who knows what'll happen next year, you know? Yeah. So no, I love reading so much.
Maybe it's a little bit, I mean, that subject matter, maybe it's a little bit like shining a flashlight down into the future. I mean, we can't know, you know, for us, we can't know from direct experience what it's like to be elderly. Not yet, you know, hopefully we will.
And I think I sort of adopt them in my mind as my grandparents because I don't have any relatives that are living into old age that I'm in any touch with. And so I want older role models so I can see, like you talk about wearing soft clothes, and I think that's my plan when I retire. I just want to wear soft clothes and read books and do yoga and be that really like fit older woman who's, still, I don't know.
And so it shall be.
And so it shall be.
So what are you reading? What are you going to share with us today?
Okay, so I just started this yesterday. It's called Finding Henry Appleby by Celia Reynolds. And it's about an 85 plus man. He doesn't reveal his actual age. And he's, I don't know much yet, but he's traveling back to Edinburgh, I believe, to find like the love of his life that he did something. He said it was the greatest regret. And he's trying to go back and make things right. And on this train, he meets an 18-year-old girl who's also going to Edinburgh, something mysterious. Her mom has passed away and she's trying to do something. I don't know what it is yet, but I find him so charming. Do you want me to just read this tiny little passage?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. I already love him and I've only known him for 70 pages. Okay. Even now, the memory cleaved Henry's heart in two. Time, it seemed, had been cruel and capricious. It had healed nothing. One thing he'd learned for sure, digging around in his memories as he sat, pen in hand, bent over his notebook, was like sifting for gold. He never quite knew when the most precious nuggets of all, the ones with the power to steal his breath away, were going to filter up to the surface. Her smile was electric. Sometimes it was a transitory feeling, gentle as a whisper, as intangible as a baby's breath. At other times, it was a profound ache that grabbed hold of Henry's heart and tightened its grip like an iron fist. It astounded him how the human heart could remain so vital and complex with the passing of years, an organ so unwaveringly loyal and pure and constant on the inside, while the outer body bowed to its inevitable decline.
It's lovely writing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. And I just thought about that. Like, our heart never feels old, I don't think. Does it? I mean, I've talked to 75-year-olds who are like, I feel just the only thing that surprises me and when I look in the mirror and I see an old person. Because they still feel young on the inside. And I think I feel like that. Not like I'm 85, but I feel like sometimes I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm getting older. That's the truth.
Yeah. My grandfather is in his mid-90s, and the last time I spoke with him was a few weeks ago, and I came out of the conversation realizing that my grandfather speaks in jazz.
Oh.
He is so playful with his language, and he always has been, but I think that he has become more and more playful with his language, and he just riffs. And, he kind of like picks up on a word or, a phrase or a sentence or a question, whatever it is. He, what I realized that after this conversation with him, that in a way I come out of my conversations with my grandfather of two minds. One is terribly disappointed because what I want from my conversations with him is some explicit wisdom, some complete or a complete piece of a story from history. I've asked him a few times in the past year, Grandpa, was there ever a time that you experienced the world the way it feels right now? Wondering, I've wanted to place this pandemic and the political situation in the U.S. last year. I wanted some kind of greater context. And my grandfather's in his mid-90s. I mean, in the last century, have you ever had a time when it felt like this? He won't answer those questions. And so I realized after my last call that I'm profoundly disappointed on the one hand, and then letting go of my attachment and what I would like there to be, I realized that there's this other side as well, which is incredible inspiration, because he just picks up on a word or a phrase, and then you're like tumbling down some kind of spoken word jazz that's just like a riff and like a tumble over and over again. And he loves the sound of words, and he just, it's so interesting. It is, art in time, completely uncapturable. What is that word? I can't capture it. I can't pin it down, but it's like, when you see a butterfly, just fly by. That's like the way my grandfather speaks now.
So and I wonder if this is part of getting older, is you're in the moment more because you're like, that's what I have. Is that what you think is going on?
It feels to me like he is just, this is his sandbox. Like, this is what he's playing with. This is what he likes to play with. And this is, he gets to choose.
Yeah.
At this age,
he's earned that, I guess.
And maybe he's a little bored of memories. I mean, his memory, I think, is completely intact. He's fine in that regard, but I think that he's just not terribly interested in scanning back, all those decades to find the piece that might be similar to this moment in time for his granddaughter who's, asking him these questions. I think he kind of just wants to play and have a good time.
Yeah.
With language.
Yeah, and then you go, okay, you know what? You're 97. You get to do what you want in the moment.
You get
to wear your soft pants, and you get to speak in jazz if that's what you want. You get to speak in jazz.
That's exactly
right. Oh
right.
my gosh. That's crazy. What are you reading?
I am reading The Overstory by Richard Powers. Have you read this book?
Oh, no.
Are you familiar with it? Mm-mm. Winner of the Pulitzer Prize. And I came to this book just really wanting some beautiful reading. I did not know, or beautiful language. I did not know anything about it, except that it had won the Pulitzer Prize. And so I thought, well, I'll go there. I've had good luck with that in the past, and let's just see. I've had some really great reading, actually, I'll say, over the pandemic. And I was also in the mood for a bit of a longer book. The last book I read was a very slim memoir. So this is a novel, and it's the kind of seems weird to use the word seed, but the seed of the book is trees. All of the characters are they're not necessarily tree people, but there's something about trees that's sort of the lens through which he's seeing their lives. And I want to read this little piece. I'm halfway through the book, and I think what's happening, the first half of the book, or the first third of the book, is each chapter is sort of devoted to a particular person or that person's family through generations. That each chapter is either, it's oriented around a birch tree or a mulberry or trying to think of what the other trees were. Chestnut. He talks a lot about the chestnut blight in the U.S. And I think in the second half of the book, what's happening is, the characters their lives are going to start to converge somehow. So this particular excerpt is two characters earlier in the book had gone on their first date, and for their first date, the one character said, "I know what we should do for our first date. Let's go audition for a play." And I don't think either of them had ever acted before, but they discovered on this first date how much they both enjoyed this like community theater. And so now this is some years later, they have gotten married, and I'll take it from here, and I'll put my reading glasses on.
Oh, I want those.
Reading glasses? They are fabulous, especially the font is very small. Okay, so they're now married, the Brinkmans. The Brinkmans take to reading when they're alone together. And together, they're alone most of the time. Community theater is over. They haven't acted in a play since the one about the non-existent baby. They've never said out loud to each other that their acting days are over. No dialogue required. In place of children, then, books. In their reading tastes, each of them stays true to the dreams of youth. Ray likes to glimpse the grand project of civilization ascending to its still obscure destiny. He wants only to read on, late into the night, about the rising quality of life, the steady freeing of humanity by invention, the breakout of know-how that will finally save the race. Dorothy needs wilder reclamations, stories free of ideas and steeped in local selves. Her salvation is close, hot, and private. It depends on a person's ability to say, nevertheless, and to do one small thing that seems beyond them and, for a moment, break the grip of time. I just realized there are 2 sections I want to read, but I'm only going to read one, and I'll just keep going here. Ray's shelves are organized by topic, Dorothy's alphabetical by author. He prefers state-of-the-art books with fresh copyrights. She needs to communicate with the distant dead, alien souls as different from her as possible. Once Ray starts a book, he force marches through to its conclusion, however hard the slog. Dorothy doesn't mind skipping the author's philosophies to get to those moments when one character, often the most surprising, reaches down inside herself and is better than her nature allows. Life in their 40s. Once any given volume enters the house, it can never leave. For Ray, the goal is readiness, a book for every unforeseeable need. Dorothy strives to keep local independent booksellers afloat and save neglected gems from the cutout bin. Ray thinks, you never know when you might finally get around to reading that tome you picked up 5 years ago. And Dorothy thinks, someday you'll need to take down a worn-out volume and flip to that passage on the lower right-hand face, 10 pages from the end, that fills you with such sweet and vicious pain. The conversion of their house into a library happens too slowly to see. The books that won't fit she lays on their sides, on top of the existing rows. This warps the covers and makes him crazy. For a while they solve the problem with more furniture. A pair of cherry cases to set between the windows in his downstairs office. A large walnut unit in the front room, in the space traditionally reserved for the television altar. Maple in the guest room. He says, that should hold us for a while. She laughs, knowing from every novel she has ever read how brief a while can be. Dorothy's mother dies. They can't bear to part with a single volume of the dead woman's titles, so they add them to their collection that would have been the envy of kings. Dorothy finds an incredible deal on Walter Scott's complete Waverley novels in a downtown antiquarian bookstore. 1882! And look at these beautiful end papers. Marble waterfall. You know what we could do? Ray tosses off an idea on the way to the cashier. Next to Scott, he slips in a copy of The Age of Intelligent Machines. That funky wall in the small bedroom upstairs. We could have a carpenter design some built-ins. The plans they once had for that room now seem older than anything on their shelves. She nods and tries to smile, reaching down inside herself for a word. She doesn't know the word. She doesn't even know that that's what she's doing. Nevertheless, the word is nevertheless. Maybe I'll read the next part next week.
Oh, that's like me. I feel like I have a hard time because I want to fill my space with books. I just turned a shoe shelf into a bookshelf recently because I had books in every nook and cranny, and I thought, these are dying in here. They need to see the light. Yeah, that's beautiful.
There was a short while, 2 years ago, I think, when, every once in a while Darby would suggest that maybe I didn't need quite so many books in the house.
Darby.
Oh, Darby.
Oh, Darby.
And,
No.
And I tried that one time when I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast many years ago. I gave away all but the most essential books. Mm-hmm. So I had a small stack probably of 15 or 20 that I took with me, but the rest gave away. And I have regretted it. To this day, I regret giving away those books. I remember some of those books that I gave to this person or that person. I'm like, why did I do that? So anyway, every once in a while, Darby suggests that maybe we don't need quite so many books. And so about 2 years ago, I decided that for people's birthdays, I would give them a book from my shelf And that would be meaningful for me. I would get to share a book that, I think that this person appreciates. I would be able to spend time looking at my shelf, picking out the book. And that lasted, I don't know, 6 months maybe. And I completely regret it. I have never been so hostile about birthday gifts before.
So
like,
funny.
why did I give that person that one?
Oh, that's so interesting. I brought a box of books. I thought that should be okay. I know there's an English bookstore, but it has very few here. I go to the UK and end up buying books there because obviously there are large stores that are written in English. But I remember a friend came over and he was like, "Oh, which of these are your favorite?" And I was like, no, I haven't read those yet books. Like those are, like I have an entire shelf of all the books I want to read. And he was like, "I think you probably don't need that many books." And I was like, "You don't understand. Like even just looking at it, I'm just going to, even though I'm totally plugged in here, I'm going to just show you. It brings me great joy. And I just want to show you this because I think it will bring you great joy. I did it by color.
Oh yes, I have done that before.
And
yes.
I just love it. And then I play this game. I don't know, you can see it, I'm sure, but
yes.
I play this game where when I finish a book, I go to my own bookshelves and I think, what mood am I in? What do I want? I love it. Anyway.
Yeah, I did the color spine. It was so lovely. I have never been so pleased with the look, the aesthetics of my bookshelf. However, that I had to reorganize. It was just getting impossible to find the books that I needed. I don't know what I think it was when I was in graduate school actually, because I was reading so much and I was just like, oh, I need to put these books in alphabetical order. I need these books by subject matter, and the whole aesthetic of the color scheme just went out the window. My CDs too. When I had a CD collection that I regularly used, it wasn't by color. It was by association.
Oh, fascinating.
So, for example, the Vinyl Avenue String Band was a band that played every Monday night at the Tirnanogue in Boston, and the Vinyl Avenue String Band was made up of Chris Delmhurst and Rye Kavanagh and Sean Staples, and occasionally they would have Katie Curtis would show up, Jennifer Kimball would show up, sometimes Jim Infantino, and there would just be, songwriters, people would show up at this Monday night little bar, tiny bar, I mean, honestly, maybe 4 times the size of my shed, and it was such a great night. So of course, my shelf would have the Vinyl Avenue String Band, and next to it would be, Chris Delmhurst, and it would have like the associated acts, and then it would, as you went down, it would be like, okay, well, this person is not associated with the Vinyl Avenue String Band, but they played Newport Folk Festival with so-and-so, whatever it is. And, it just, nobody else could find anything on my shelf, but I knew exactly where everything was. It was so obvious to me.
Yeah. That's fun.
I mean, alphabetical order, I just had to succumb to that with my bookshelf because just for practical reasons.
Yeah. I think if you need certain books at certain times, you cannot do it by color. But like I do my spices in alphabetical order. I mean, I'm sure I can find them because it's not like I have, but it's easier for me. I like, oh yeah, they're labeled.
I never made the connection, but I actually do my spices in the old CD manner.
Yeah.
So like my
associations, like you have an Indian food, and then you have like your. Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. So I'm just trying to think like there's a pivot between like there's a pivot at a certain place, like cinnamon is the border between
totally
pumpkin pie and like Mexican food.
Yes, of course. You know what I mean? Your next podcast is going to be a cooking and musicians show.
That is
I
would funny.
Love also to talk about cooking with you. I love it so much. That's a great
idea.
And COVID, I will say this. COVID has been incredible for giving, it's been also terrifying and there have been a lot of things about it, but
yes,
it has given me time to reflect and really think like, I think sometimes we're so busy in the regular world as we know it, that we don't take time to evaluate, like, am I doing exactly what I want to do in this moment? Is this where I want to be? And also, yeah, I mean, I've had more time to cook and more time to read and more time to write or to play around, more time to exercise. It's given me a lot, actually, to reflect on and be thankful for, even though it's horrible and terrifying. And I know people who've lost their parents, you know, it's not, I'm not taking it lightly, but I'm constantly trying to live my life in a way that finds the positive spin on whatever, you know, if we can't always, like, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
I'm right there with you, where I am always holding both of those parts, and I can hear it in your voice, that awareness that they, like, both and these two opposing ideas, this sense of devastation and grief simultaneously existing with a joyful celebration of the fact that because of that, because we scraped down to the bottom, we then were able to more mindfully choose what we started to add back in, or you know, with our lives. I want to acknowledge Joseph's suggestion here. If we ever go with the music and food podcast, we can call it Spice Girls.
I think that's an amazing idea. It could be a spin-off. See, I wonder, would you have done this podcast had it not been for this? You know, I mean, there are just things that people are creating and doing as a result.
This would
that
not
they
have
might
existed.
right.
Yeah.
And how amazing what you're doing. I've watched some of your episodes, and it's so fun to watch you in this way. You're so natural. You're inquisitive. You know, I love the fact that you're incorporating books. I think it's a great way to connect people. And yeah, anyway, so congratulations on I want to say borning this baby, but I mean birthing. I'm losing my English because I'm living in a French-speaking country. So I'll be like, I can speak to you in a bit of French, but not in English.
Oh, please
anymore.
do, actually. You are welcome to do that. I don't guarantee that it would be understood, but well, you're totally right. I mean, I think that there's a real beauty in, I mean, no, this show would not exist, and it directly came out of, I mean, I don't know how I would have, I mean, the point was that I wanted to, this year, or last year, 2020, I really wanted to have conversations with other songwriters. And before COVID hit, I wanted to have conversations with songwriters. And when COVID hit, I still wanted to have conversations with songwriters. And I don't actually know how many conversations of this depth I would have actually had if Tomes and Tunes hadn't been birthed, you know, which was a direct result of COVID. You know, because the conversations I would have had with songwriters, I imagine most of them would have been, you know, in the lobby of Hotel Cafe, where we're just kind of shooting the shit after a show, or in between, or, you know, just like the conversations that you have, which, you know, oh, you're going on tour, you know, just those kinds of conversations. But we wouldn't have been talking about books and creative process, and also that other thing that you mentioned, which is when you're scraped down totally to the base level, what are the important things that you really care about, that you want to start adding in? And it's kind of interesting coming from you too, because you had already scraped down to the bottom in a lot of ways. You were coming out of a divorce and you moved to another continent.
Yeah.
You started a new career.
Yeah.
And like everything about your lifestyle, you had already gone through so much of that process of scraping down, trying to find the essence of what was important to you and what were your values. What did you want to grow more of in your life, and what did you want to, you know, kind of put aside and say, okay, this is past history, and this helped me to come to where I am now, but I don't want to move forward in this. Like you had done that work already, and then COVID hit. Was it a sense of like, wow, I've already done this and I have to do more, or was it a little bit of relief that the rest of the world now had to catch up with you? And do
Honestly,
the
it's
same
weird,
thing?
but I found it so relieving because when I made the change and I knew, I knew I wasn't giving up touring. This wasn't I choose this. It was, I want to both and I knew I wanted to be over here as much as I could. And I also knew that the calendar year of this particular school was 16 weeks off a year to tour. That's 4 months a year. And that's perfect for the amount of touring I wanted to do over here. It would allow me to get back to the States, etc. But when I came over, and you're right, I mean, I was just in survival mode for a while. But I was watching my friends like put out albums and tour, and I had this longing, like it was difficult for me. I thought, oh my gosh, is this where I lose myself? And I realized I like veered off the path. And then I kept saying, no, Camille, you are going to come back, but you just needed to rebirth and you needed to relocate and start fresh and you will recreate. And, actually there was this just one really short quote at the beginning of this book. And I mean, it's so simple, but I would have perished had I not persisted. And, and every time someone would ask me, and I do a lot of coaching with songwriters who are wanting to tour, and they would say, how did you do it? Because I toured for 15 years, just that was my living. And they were like, how did you do it? And I say, I just kept going. You just keep going. And I do think there's an element of you have to be hungry. And I don't mean that literally, although that does help, but I still have that hunger. So to see the rest of the world sort of shut down with me, I was like, oh, I don't know, but it just brought me, I know it's sad, but it also brought me a sense of like, okay, we're in this together and we will all rebirth together. And I felt much more unified that I'm watching my dad, his bistro in America, in Seattle, is like barely, they're doing it. But I don't know how. They have 4 tables inside. They're only open a couple days a week now. They were a live music venue. They're not hosting any music. We all have to rise from this in some way. And so I really appreciated the break, but I'm ready to rise with everybody who's been kind of desolate, I guess, and not able to express their arts. I think of actors. I have friends who are directing theaters and they're trying to change the entire model to these, Zoom productions. And for the arts, it's a really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel inspired, and I think a lot of times artists don't take the rest that they need in order to create and perform their best. And I'm fully rested, and I'm really ready to get out.
You're like, okay, I'm good.
No, I'm ready. I really, I'm like, okay. I really come alive. Even when I'm writing, I just feel, yeah. And I love teaching too. It is in my blood. I don't mean genetically. I don't have anybody in my family that's a teacher, but I feel like my teachers raised me, and I love bringing new songwriters into the world. I love coaching songwriters. I love working with singers. So that also it's a real part of what I love to do, running workshops like you and Darby. You're taking your passion and you're offering that to other people, and it's a great joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Gosh, so many good things in there. I'm going to ask you to play a song in a moment, but I just want to also add this one thing, which is that I just read this the other day that someone was saying that he believes that after this time there's going to be a renaissance, and there are 2 kinds of people. There are the people who create the renaissance, and then there are the people that are kind of like, whoa, where did this renaissance come from? And I'm paraphrasing, very much what he said, but it really struck me, this idea, the folks who are, getting creative, and like your friends who are trying to envision a new model online. Mm-hmm. Not to say that they always will be online or that they even prefer to be online, but to say that just the creative thinking and the pushing against other edges that we didn't need to push against before because there were some paths already trod. You know, after this, those paths that were previously trod will still be there. Now, that's not to. I want to recognize the fact that a lot of venues have closed down, a lot of festivals are suffering, a lot of restaurants. I want to recognize that, but to say that the path of, you know, the concept of a venue, the concept of a festival or a bistro, you know, those concepts exist already. And what this time period has done is kind of force the conception of new ideas. Right.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that we keep using the words conception and birth and
birth. Well,
and then that guy said Renaissance, like
I absolutely believe it, and I also think that people who sort of took for granted that there would always be these, oh, I could go see her in concert another time, I could go blah blah blah, you know, who needs live music, I could just stream it. And now that those options have been taken away, I do think there will be people that are like, okay, I'm going out, I'm seeing live music, I've done the home thing, you know, I've worn my soft clothes, I want to put on some hard clothes and go out and like support artists. I hope so, because and support restaurants and be grateful. You know, it's I can't remember the last time I got to go to a coffee shop and sit in and have a coffee. And I'm just like, you know, for so long that was, and especially when I was in America, you do it 2 times a day, 3 times a day sometimes, you know, and now I'm just like, just once a month I would really like to go. And, you know, I want to support restaurants, like you said, and festivals. And
yeah, it's funny. You just said something that that makes me think. You know, when people buy a box of like cake mix, right? I want to make a cake, and so I go to the store and I buy this box with the cake mix in it. I come home, I add the 2 ingredients that it needs to have added, and we have a cake. And you know, that is there's something missing there. And before, when people could go out to see live music but they chose not to, or they, you know, like all the things, you know, oh, I'll see her the next time, you know, it's sort of like, well, this understanding, you know, I can do that anytime, so I don't have to do that now. And I guess what this time is helping me to, you know, think about a lot is when I go out to see live music, part of it is about the performer and seeing that performance, but actually a big part of it is not about the performer. The performer has facilitated this gathering, like that, because that performer is getting up on stage. The rest of us, 50 people or, you know, 2,000, whatever it might be, but the rest of us have a reason to gather together and to experience all the sensory experience of being together, hearing snippets of conversation, the aromas of, you know, whatever the food or drinks are, the stars overhead if you're at the Greek or the Hollywood Bowl, or, you know, the lights on all of the things, like all of that sensory experience. That now we still get live stream shows, but it's like we're just getting the sound and the look, but we're not getting the smells, the feels, the getting dressed to go, like the effort, the difficulty of making a full cake versus just, you know, the cake box. We have the cake box version, right?
I have to say also the other reason, like when I'm playing a show, I feel like over the evening I will fall in love with the audience, like, and we're in it together, and we're, you know, maybe we're singing together, or we're experiencing sadness together because of this, whatever it is such an exchange to me. And the screen is a look at me. It's not, but you know what I mean? I can't look at you, I can't get that connection that creates then the energy exchange that propels my ship forward. Like, so it feels, I mean, it's just like if you're trying to teach a class online and you just see all these cartoon heads, they're not real heads. How can you even teach to that? I mean, and I feel the same about, I mean, I'll be grateful if people are tuned in and watching, if I put out, you know, a streaming concert. But to me, you're absolutely right. The energy created, the synergy, the exchange between audience members and artists, to me, that's what the magic is, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's still a piece of the magic, but it's not like it's still a cake, which is a special thing, right? It's still something that's worth something, but it's just a little bit flatter. Well, literally flat on the screen, but it's there are just aspects of it that are missing that
Yeah.
were not even really acknowledged before. You know,
Mhm.
oh, I'm gonna go see, you know, so and so play. Oh, but I'm also gonna see the thousands of other people that are like, you know, at my elbows and the ticket taker and you know, all like I'm gonna have that whole experience.
Yeah.
All right, Camille,
Okay.
play us a song.
Okay. All right. Well,
And for those of you tuning in, tell us what you think about any of this stuff. Chime in, say hi. We would love to see you.
I have a lot of people that want to stream it post show. I hope that's all good, right? They can go in and stream it.
Oh yeah. It's the middle of the night by you. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. These songs
Okay.
stay up.
Wonderful. This is a song that just talks about my experience when I was trying to decide, do I stay in America in this bubble where I am, or do I make this huge leap and completely like throw my world into chaos? And when I was considering it, I was never center line. I was always to one great extreme or the other. So I felt like a pendulum, and I wrote this song called Pendulum about the experience of trying to decide what to do with my life. So here it goes. Pendulum, I'm swinging side to side to both extremes. Just when I reach conclusion on the left, my heart will scream, get out, what are you doing here? You're broken at the seams. But then I jump right back and hear your voice whispering, please. Ooh, ooh. To one side lays a mystery, adventure still unknown. And its end is the future I could create on my own. Then I sway right back again to comfort and to home, and the softness of your hands and heart I've come to know. Left to right and side to side, but never in the center, touching the end of both extremes, and it's not getting better. Back and forth, I'm hypnotized and paralyzed with doubt. I'm sliding down the rabbit hole and can't find my way out. Closer to a manic state than I have ever been. I'm not eating or sleeping, my convictions running thin. I know that you don't trust me, that's the boat both are in. I can't believe a word I say, cause I'll swing right back again. Left to right and side to side, but never in the center, touching the end of both extremes, and it's not getting better. Back and forth, I'm hypnotized and paralyzed with doubt. I'm sliding down the rabbit hole and can't find my way out. Left to right and side to side, but never in the center. I'm touching the end of both extremes, and it's not getting better. Back and forth, I'm hypnotized and paralyzed with doubt. I'm sliding down the rabbit hole and can't find my way out. Thank you.
I love it. Oh my gosh, so relatable. Right? When we're trying to make big decisions. That's so interesting. What a great insight about the center versus the extremes.
Yeah, I feel like when we're making that decision, we're always swinging.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, you can try to stay in the center, but it's really difficult, especially in crisis. You're just like, blah, oh,
Yeah. I have a
You know.
friend who makes spreadsheets for every decision in her life. I mean, it's really fascinating. But she was in a long-term relationship, and she was trying to figure out for a long time whether, whether the relationship had run its course, whether it was time to go. And she was having a hard time, just like this song, and she would swing, and she just diagrammed it out, spreadsheets, Venn diagrams, like all kinds of things, and it was actually really fascinating. But that's kind of what I mean, it's like, where's the logic, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I love the feel of that song. It's like, it's also got that like agitated,
Yeah.
kind of
And
like,
I was, I really was. I mean, I was like, I wouldn't, yeah, I was really close. I was barely, I could eat like chicken broth, I was just not, um, yeah, I wasn't functioning at a very high level. But I felt like I had all this energy to expend and trying to decide. And actually, the thing that helped me was, well, one, a million different therapists over my lifetime, but also the one that I had, she said, visualize your life, write it out as it stands, imagine you've stayed, and write that all out. And then in the column next to it, write your feelings of how your like gut feels as you read it back, and then do that for the transition. You move away, you write that, how does your gut feel? And it was really eye-opening. And I do think what you said about what did you say about the relationship, had it not timed out, but was it
run its course.
Yeah, has it run its
Something.
course?
Yeah.
And I love the person I was with. I still do. 14 years is a long time.
Oh yeah.
But there's a point where you've given each other all that you had to give, and maybe it was a beautiful thing, and then paths diverge,
Yeah.
So
And that's such a hard thing to know. When you
Yeah.
start 14 years ago, when
yeah,
you start, there's no way to know, oh, this feels like a rich well. Are we going to tap bottom at some point?
yeah. No, I never thought we would. I was
Yeah.
certain. I was like that certain romantic, just like, this is it. Stick a fork in me, like. So now I doubt everything. You know what I mean? I'm just like, well, I was so sure, and clearly I know nothing.
Everything that I have said in my life, nearly everything that I have said with certainty at one point, as the years have gone on, it's played out, and I'm like, oh, I was so certain.
Yeah. That's the only thing I got from this, is that my only certainty is that I'm completely uncertain about everything.
That's challenging.
It's okay. It's okay, because it's brought me so to the present moment, and constantly checking in and just going, is this what I want to be doing? Is this where, I don't any longer do those long projections of what I think the future will hold. I just give my everything to the moment, and it is peaceful.
I had 2 times in my life when I experienced that in a really magnificent way. The first was when I quit music after my first 3 albums, and then my touring, and then I stopped, and I didn't know what to do with myself, and I had lost my sense of identity as a musician, and I didn't know who I was without it. And I moved to Los Angeles, and every day I just woke up and I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my day? Like, what moves me, what feels curious or interesting? And that lasted a really long time. I was on, like a 10-year vision quest, basically, but that lasted a really long time. But the other time was when I went through my divorce years ago, and I remember I moved into my own apartment after we separated, and I came home at the end of the day, and I thought to myself, what do I want to listen to right now? And every night I chose Miles Davis for quite some time, and it was like, I want to listen to Miles Davis, and then I would say, what do I want to eat right now? And what do I want to drink? I want a glass of wine. And for myself, I remember that resistance. You can't open a bottle of wine just for yourself. And then I thought, well, why not? And just pour a glass of wine, listen to Miles Davis. I was rereading a book that I had loved when I was younger, and I was sitting with my cat, and it was just every night, it was so lovely. It was really lovely.
Yeah. I think that asking yourself, and realizing that you hadn't asked yourself for some time, I think we get out of the habit because we get into patterns. We have these, I was just talking to my friend about this the other day. Basically, we are all creatures of habit. We create habits. If that's a meditation habit, like I saw Darby has every morning, which sounds beautiful, a breathing meditation, wonderful. If it's getting up and scrolling through Facebook mindlessly, that's your habit. Right. And we are all creatures of habit. But I think we forget to take enough time, and that's another thing COVID has done, is it gives, and divorce, all of a sudden I wasn't, on a farm anymore. I wasn't on a riding mower. I wasn't, I was living in this little apartment with just enough. And I did a lot of that, like, oh my gosh, apparently I want to do yoga like all the time. And I want to, you know what I mean? And I mean, I always love to cook and I like to grow food, but I don't know, it's just, leveling up and eating what you want and discovering what your new rituals are as a solo human.
Yeah. It's really lovely to look to another human and say, what would you like? What do you want? But you're right. We are, our brains are pattern makers, and we get into habits for good and for bad, both.
Mm-hmm.
But, but after 14 years or however many years of turning to someone else and saying, what do you want? To then turn to ourselves and say, oh, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, you. I forgot to check in with you while I was checking in with the other you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, so awesome.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to play a song that's totally different.
Okay.
This one's actually, after I quote-unquote quit music, I wrote a handful of songs in that decade. And this is one of the songs that I wrote, and I cannot explain why, but in that time, the only songs I wanted to write were songs, or I should say, the only time I was inspired to try to process the world, and like I guess I was trying to hold it in something that was, you could hold a song in 3 or 4 minutes or 5 minutes maybe, but like that is you know, a lot of things in life are just too big. Like, how do you hold that? You can't wrap your head around that. So I found myself with some disasters, trying to wrap my head around it and wanting to write a song about it. And so, in that time, I wrote about Hurricane Katrina, which had happened years earlier, but I had never written about it. So I wrote about that, and I wrote about 9/11, and I also wrote about this, and I guess maybe I want to play it because of the fact that most of the United States is under 32 degrees right now, and you know, I'm thinking about my friends in Texas, but you know, I maybe that's why I want to play this song. It's called East of Highway 79, and I wrote it about one year when the Mississippi flooded and the Midwest was underwater, and I was just trying to, I think I just wanted to understand it a little bit from the perspective not of the newspapers and like the reporting of it, but like what does it feel like to be on the ground, like the people. And I had been touring, I had recently in that time, I had not in the too far distant past had toured through that area and stayed with some people, so I was just thinking about them. So this is East of Highway 79. Down around the bend, east of Highway 79, got a water tower, church steeple, skyline. The farms go on for miles to the Mississippi banks. As far as you can see, everything's the same. An old man river's angry side takes the bricks, the beams, the dreams from our lives left behind. East of Highway 79. The flood of 93, well, it kicked us pretty bad. When the levee broke in Winfield, they nearly wiped us off the map. This June the rains came back, and there was talk that we should go. But when when you're filling sandbags, you'll meet the nicest folks. An old man rivers angry side. It takes the bricks, the beams, the dreams from our lives left behind. Eastern Highway 79. We live down by down, day by day, and sandbags and prayers do not wash away. What will we lose just to stay? Old man rivers angry side. Takes the bricks, the beams, the dreams from our lives left behind. Eastern Highway 79. Left behind. Eastern Highway 79.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
This is fun. We should do this every day.
It is really fun.
It is. I love the fact that you play also. You know, it's really, it feels more like an exchange. I love listening to live music. I mean, one of the main reasons I love to play shows is I'll play with someone and get to watch their set, and it inspires me. And so I love that you're playing for this also.
Yeah, before I started this show, right at the beginning of COVID, a friend of mine a songwriter friend from Austin, she invited me to have a conversation with her like this, vertically on Instagram. And we had a conversation about, I don't even know what we talked about, but it was really fun. It was right when the world had, closed down, and it was a few weeks into it. And, I remember at the time I was just like a deer in headlights. I think everybody was, we were just like, what the hell is going on? And like a lot of grief and just bewilderment. And we had a conversation together. And then she asked me to play a song, and I played a song, and then I asked her to play a song, and she played a song, and it was like, oh my gosh, like, it felt so radical, and I mean, I had never done a live stream with another person before, and after that I was like, oh my gosh, I did this show on Instagram for the first couple of weeks, and I didn't like the technology, but I was like, how can we do this on, first of all, horizontally rather than vertically, and second, wired in rather than just like sitting right next to the router because the connection was so bad. I felt a little silly at the beginning. I was like, should I play? Should I also play a song? But I just remember back to when my friend Natalie Price, when I had asked her if she would play too, and how much it had filled my heart just to hear her sing. So like,
because honestly, we've heard ourselves play a lot.
Yeah.
And every other show or TV or anything I've done, it's always it's me, and it's like fun to a point, of course, and I feel grateful, but also I've heard myself enough, so it's like
it's like sitting around a campfire right here.
Yeah, exactly. But when you were playing, I was like, wait, why isn't there more of this? Like, I was thinking I could, because I host songwriting retreats, in different places. And I had one in France last summer, and I'm like, you know what? We could do song exchange with songwriters and like share songs and give feedback, and for people who wanted. Why couldn't I do that, run my retreat and have people go off into their space and work on something and then come back? And
You could.
I mean, I could, right?
Do it.
I mean, yeah. So
Unfortunately, on the downside, not in France specifically.
Right,
However, on the upside, if you happen to be in France, then there you are.
Yeah.
And if you're not in France, you can actually get there to
Yeah.
this thing, for free.
it's true.
Next week, I should say, actually, this little ticker tape that's running on the bottom of the screen. I'm doing the Folk Alliance conference, Folk Unlocked, this year, and that is next week. And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm doing song swaps with other songwriters each of those days. So I can't remember the exact schedule, but Natalie Price, the woman I just mentioned, Kate Klim, Dulcie Taylor, and Stella Schindler are songwriters. I'm going to be just for an hour back and forth each of the days.
That's awesome.
I'm really excited just for exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and I'm watching what you're creating and how you're reaching out and still staying connected, and that Folk Alliance can even still, it can, because technology. I just keep saying technology. It's amazing. I know I sound like I'm old when I say that, but I'm legitimately it's blowing my mind. The fact that I can see you right now. And I know. And I also think time. What is time? It's so weird. It's 12:16 a.m. here, but I just, it's a construct, of course, but the way that you're connecting with people, it is inspiring, and I'm really happy that you're doing it, and I just appreciate you having me on the show.
Thank you.
So
Thank
thanks.
you. It is such a pleasure to talk with you. This has been really fun.
Good. Me too.
Yeah. Camille, one last question before
Sure.
before you say goodbye. Do you have any? You just mentioned the songwriting thing,
Mm-hmm.
so it sounds like maybe you have some plans coming up in the future that maybe you didn't have before you started the show this afternoon or this evening. But is there anything that the folks who are watching might want to know about?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, so I have some shows booked. One specifically in Germany coming up in May. Whether that happens or not, you just have to be open to but I'll be posting info on that. If I'm back in Seattle, which is my intention, I'll be teaching songwriting at a camp in Blaine, Washington in July. And then I'll be doing a songwriting workshop for adults. I already have the location sorted. I just have to see if I'm able to fly there. But it's a total option that I can do it with people in person. It's on a really big property, so there'd be plenty of space, and it's a concert venue also. But people could dial in and do some of the workshop exercises and then share on the computer. So I am planning to play shows this summer, and I'm, writing hopefully for a new EP, and at some point we'll crowdfund for it. And so that's what I've got going, and then sing in harmony. And if you want me to read a book for you, I would love it. I am so into reading out loud, using my voice in fun ways.
Everybody, reach out to Camille and ask her to read you some bedtime
I'll
stories.
read your book.
So awesome. Thank you, Camille.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And thank you all for joining for another episode. Oh my gosh, how fun is that? Camille in Luxembourg, me in Los Angeles. And we did not need COVID to do this, but we didn't even think about, doing this kind of thing until everything shut down. So it is a silver lining. I hope, however, I want to say that I hope that everybody in your circle, in your loved ones, your families, I hope that you are all safe. Those of you in Texas, I'm thinking about you, and also the rest of the United States that is suffering right now in very cold weather. Stay warm, drive safely. And next week, virtually, as we mentioned, the Folk Alliance Conference is happening. I have 7 live streams in 4 days. So next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I will be live streaming every day, some of those days 2 times. And my whole schedule is on that little ticker tape at my website, ArielleSilvermusic.com. You can also get there through ArielleSilver.com, but you might get, You can visit my yoga stuff and writing and all that too. But I hope to see you. I would love to see you at any of those shows. And also next week, my guest for Tomes and Tunes is Edward from Witherward, and that is the same band that Ashley from last week, she is in. So this is her duo musical partner, and we're going to have him on the show. So I hope you will join, and I hope to see you very soon. Until then, stay safe, be sound, take good care.